you also, okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you.
So let me first share. Okay. So shalom ubracha to everyone and welcome. Um, as we do every week, we're going to be focusing on a particular topic, particular really background of halacha. But this week, I know that the official topic of our shir is contemporary halacha. But today, what we're going to be doing is take something which is not so contemporary and make it contemporary. In other words, when we look at the halacha from, as we usually say, the nefesh of the halacha, the neshama of the halacha, we will see that it is very much relevant to us here and now. And the topic we're going to be focusing on are the avnei shayam. The avnei shayam are the shoulder stones of the kohen gadol, right? So here's generally the picture, the front and the back of the kohen gadol. And on the shoulders of the kohen gadol were these stones, these shayam stones. Shayam is the type of stone. See what are they? We'll see what the translation is of exactly shayam. But these two stones, and they had things carved onto them, as we're going to see. Tonight's shir is based on Likutei Sichos Chelek Lamed Vav, volume 36. Let's read the psukim inside of this week's parsha, where we're introduced to these stones. First, we speak about the ephod. The ephod that the kohen gadol wore. The ephod is like the garment that he wore. We'll see. We're going to pass that just to get to the avnei shayam, so we don't have to describe every detail. But also, as the ephod zav tcheles vargamet la'ashani v'sheish basher ma'aseh choshev. Shtei ksefes chayvers yeloi al shtei ktsoisa v'chubar. It should have two connected shoulder straps, where the choshen, in other words, the breastplate was on the front, and should have two shoulder straps. And these shoulder straps should also be made of the same material. Okay, here's where we get to the point that we need. And you should take two shayam stones, and you should engrave upon them Shmois B'nai Yisrael, the names of B'nai Yisrael. Names of B'nai Yisrael means the names of the children, the sons of Yisrael, the sons of Yaakov. That the 12 Shvatim, Yaakov's 12 sons, should be carved. Their names should be carved upon these stones. Then the next pasuk elaborates a little bit more. Shisha mishmoisam ala even ha'echas. 6 of them should be on one stone. Ve'shmoisa shisha haneisarim ala even hashenis. And the names of the other 6 should be on the other stone. The remaining 6 should be on the other stone. Then there's one final word here, which is going to be the word that we're going to be focusing on most in tonight's class. Kitol daisam, according to their births. In other words, which 6 should be on the first stone, which 6 should be on the second stone. Kitol daisam, it should go according to their birth. According to the order of their birth, sort of according to age order. Then the pasuk continues and says, "Ma'aseh charash even pituche choisam tefatach shnei avanim," that it should be a work of an engraver of gems, should carve out these names on these 2 stones. Al shmois b'nei Yisrael musabos mishvasei zav tasa oisam. They should have settings like sockets of gold in which they should be placed. They should be placed on the shoulder straps of the ephod. Avnei zikaron livnei Yisrael, stones of remembrance for the children of Israel, for the Bnei Yisrael. V'nasa Aaron es shmoisam l'fnei Hashem. Aaron will carry these names before Hashem. Al shtei kseifav, on his shoulders, lizikaron, as a remembrance. That's another word we're going to get to soon. What does it mean that he carries them as a remembrance? Anyway, we said that the main focus here that we're going to be starting with is kitol daisam, according to their births. What does that mean? So Rashi translates quite simply, kiseder shenoldu, in the order that they were born. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali, al ha'echas. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali should be on one. Val hashniya, on the second one should be Gad, Asher, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, Binyamin. Let me show you this is how it is. Figure 1, okay? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali, those are the first 5 that were born. First 6, that were born. And then there were the second 6. Let's do a little bit of remembering here, a little bit of review. we know Leah had children first, right? So Leah had Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and then she stopped having children. So she had 4 children. Then what happened? Rachel gave her midwife Bilhah to Yaakov to have children, and she had Dan and Naphtali. So if you're following with me, that's this first column. Then Leah saw that she's not having children, so she gave her midwife, her maidservant, which not midwife, maidservant. Midwife is a different meaning. Sorry, getting me her. I know midwife is getting mixed up with Billah, with Shifra and Pua. See, her maidservant. Sorry about that. Gave her maidservant to Yaakov to have children, and sure enough, Zilpah had Gad and Asher. Then Leah had another 2 children, Yisachar and Zevulun. And then finally, Rachel had Yosef. And then after, in Parshas Vayishlach, Rachel has her final son, Binyamin. So that's the order of the giving of the birth. Then Rashi says, after telling us the order, Rashi says, Binyamin Mole. Binyamin was written in full. You see, there's 2 ways in the Torah that Binyamin is written. Either Beis Nun Yud, Mem Yud, final Nun, or it's written without a second Yud. It's either Mole or Chaser. Written whole, written complete, is when it has an additional Yud. Chaser, missing, is when it doesn't have that additional Yud. Says Rashi, why do we do it? Why do we write it in that way? Shekenu kasuv b'makom todasei. The reason why we do it that way is because when Binyamin was born, the way his name is written there in Parshas Vayishlach is Binyamin with 2 Yuds. Then Rashi concludes and makes a very interesting point. If you count the amount of letters on each one of these stones, you'll recognize that there are 25 letters on each stone. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali has 25 letters. Gad, Asher, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, Binyamin has also 25 letters if you write Binyamin in that way. That's what Rashi says. So let's look back. What is Rashi? Rashi saying really? He says almost 4 points, I would say. Number 1, he translates the word Kitol Daisam in the order of their births. Why is that not obvious? I'm not sure. Well, that's going to be one of our questions. Then Rashi is not satisfied with just telling us the order of the birth. He comes and spells it out. He lists the names. Very, very uncharacteristically, Rashi goes out of his way to elaborate and write every single name. Reuven, Shimon, Yehuda, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali on one. Gad, Asher, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, Binyamin on the other. That's the second point Rashi does. The third thing is he tells us how to spell Binyamin with 2 Yuds. And then Rashi adds a final point that there are 25 letters in each. What is Rashi coming to tell us here? Seemingly, it's obvious. It says in the pasuk, Kitol Daisam, according to the order of their births. How else could you read that? In other words, what is Rashi negating? What would have I thought if Rashi would not have written anything? You see, by the way, that's always a way you could ask. You could look at Rashi. What would I have thought if Rashi would have been silent? If Rashi would not have written anything, what would have I thought? And in this case, it seems like I would have thought exactly what Rashi wrote. Which leads us to the question, why does Rashi write this? And the second question is, now that Rashi translates the word Kitol Daisam in the order of the births, something which is already extra, why does he have to list all the names of the Shvatim? We know the order. If we don't know the order, we look back in Parshas Vayetze and we'll see the order. Why does Rashi have to do that? So, Rashi has a lot of mefarshim on Rashi. They call them, I think the correct term is super commentaries. In other words, as Rashi is a commentary, super commentaries are those who comment on Rashi. So the super commentaries, those who comment on Rashi, say that Rashi actually is coming to negate a mistaken understanding in this pasuk, in these psukim, the word to Kitol Daisam. What is the mistaken understanding? That you would have translated the word Kitol Daisam not in the order of their births, but in the order of who gave birth first. Okay, interesting twist there. It's almost like a lamdisha mistake. What's the lamdish mistake a person might have? Leah was the first one to have children, right? So you might have thought to list all of Leah's children first. All of Leah's 6 children first. She had in total 6. They weren't together because in between her first 4 and final 2, there were other children that were born to Yaakov. But Leah's 6 children would be listed first. Then would come Bilhah. And then will come Zilpah. And then will come Rachel. So Kitol Daisam, you may have translated that word mistakenly. Kitol Daisam is the order of those who began to give birth. That's what the Mefarshim and Rashi say. In other words, let's just explain what they're saying. He's saying you may have thought Kitol Daisam, don't follow the father Yaakov, follow the mothers. Whichever mother began giving birth first is the one that gets to list all her children first. So that's what the Mefarshim say Rashi's coming to negate. And I think the obvious question is, why would have I thought so? Like I said, it's a lamdisha mistake. It takes a lot of Gemara draying, with the finger in order to come to that mistake. Rashi usually is not into that. Rashi's coming to negate a simple mistake you may have made. Right? Rashi says he comes to translate Pshutei Shel Mikra. And that's what he always does. In this case, he's coming to negate something that no one would have mistakenly thought so. Although, let me just make a point now, because it's going to come up later, so let me say it now, which is the Rambam actually does go according to that quote-unquote mistaken way, what the Mefarshim are saying, calling here a mistaken way. But either way, why would we have thought so? Back to our original question. So then Rashi sufficed, but just by writing in the order of their births, Keseder Shanoldu, that would have taken care of the problem. He wouldn't have to elaborate and tell us about all the names in the order and list their names. And then finally, why does Rashi have to tell us how to spell Binyamin? And now that there's 25 letters in each one, that's not even important to understand the psukim. It's almost like Rashi's coming to say, by the way, I have an interesting vart for you. An interesting vart is that if you write Binyamin in this way, then you end up with 25 on each. Why is that important to understand the psukim? And in order to appreciate my question, the question really is, we know the rules of Rashi, and that's really the question here. We know the rules of Rashi is to stick according to the simple understanding, not to get complicated, not to make things confusing, but to stick with the simple Pshutei Shel Mikra. In this case, Rashi goes, he elaborates, he adds this thing, how to spell Binyamin. And after he finishes how to spell Binyamin, he tells you, by the way, isn't this cute? You have 25 letters on each. That whole thing is extra. Let me correct that. Seemingly extra. So what we have to do, and this is how we learn Rashi, we have to look back at the Psukim and see maybe there's something there that if I would have read it simply, I would have been left with a mistake. And Rashi's coming to avoid that mistake. If I would have read it simply, what would have I thought? Let's look at these 2 psukim, the 2 psukim that we're talking about. You should take the 2 shoyam stones. You should engrave, you should carve onto them the names of the children of Israel, the names of the sons of Israel, of Yaakov. This is where it should have said Kitol Daisam. And then afterwards it says 6 on one, 6 on the other, Kitol Daisam. The fact that it says Tol Daisam at the end, right, because it says 6 on one and 6 on the other, Kitol Daisam, would make someone perhaps think that only the second stone, the order goes according to birth. Let me explain. I know this might sound a little out there, but you'll see as we'll chew it over, it's actually a very understandable, simple reading of the Torah. The Torah says like this: you should write the 12 names of Yaakov's sons on these 2 stones. It should have said right away, according to their order of their births, but it doesn't say that. It says you should write 6 on one, 6 on the other, according to their births. According to their births is out of place. It should have been written in the beginning. Before telling us 6 and 6, it could have said, do it in the order of their births. But there's another word here that's making us feel that it should only apply to the second stone, not to the first. What's that? This additional word, it says Hanaisarim. 6 of the names should be on the first stone, and the remaining 6, sort of the leftover 6, should be on the other. What does that imply? That implies that the first stone is the special sons of Yaakov, the significant ones, the chashuva ones. They're on the first stone. The noisarim, the remaining ones, the leftover ones, the less significant ones, those go on the second stone. And the second stone, you don't list them according to specialty because they're not special. So you list them according to their age, according to their birth.
Possible to ask a quick question?
Sure, please.
If I'm reading the pasuk correctly, I also get the impression where it says list 6 on one. Maybe I would have thought that that should have been the 6th of Leah. And then the others, the remaining, that's where you get the names of the other 3 mothers' children in their order only.
I hear what you're saying, because it makes them into 2 units, right? And you want to show that there is a unit of 6, and the unit of 6 is Leah's children, because she had 6. I hear you, and I think we should include that idea. And not only that, I appreciate what you're saying most, because I think it's going to help us understand maybe the logic of the opinion of the Rambam of why he indeed does do it the way you just said. And the way he translates Kitol Daisam, by the way, is like we said before, he would go to the mother that gave birth first. But the point I'm trying to highlight here in Rashi is that Rashi sees someone reading this pasuk, and Rabbi Green, maybe what you just said is included in what I'm trying to point out, which is, with a simple reading of the pasuk, you may be led to think that there's a difference in significance, in specialty, in chashivos between one and the other. That word noisarim, leftover, remaining, makes it sound like there's a difference in the first and the second. And what would you create out of these mistakes? You would say the first one had the special children. And by the way, you might ask, how would you define a special child? A special child would be either like really what you mentioned, which is, those who were born from Yaakov's wives, not the shvachos, not Bilhah, not Zilpah, different. That's one way of chashivas. Another way of chashivas would be to look at those that Yaakov blessed, and the way he blessed them before his passing, we could recognize which ones are more chashiv, right? Like you have Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. These are ones that had greater blessings than others. So there might be a different way of sort of calculating who's considered the 6th and who's considered the remaining 6. And that's what you would have, and then you would have seen the word Kitol Daisam according to their births. And what would have you said? You would have said the first stone had them in order of their significance, of their chashivus, of their greatness. And the second stone had them in order of their, in line order, in age order, because you couldn't list them any other way. You couldn't, decide who should go first and second, so you go according to birth. Therefore, Rashi comes, and what does Rashi do? Rashi tells us that Rashi clarifies that both groups were written according to Kitol Daisam. The first thing he wants us to know that the word Kitol Daisam does not only apply to the second stone, it applies to both. And then that's why he goes through all the names, Reuven, Shimon, because he wants us to show that the order of the births does not just apply to the second stone, it applies to both. What are you going to ask? If so, why is the word Kitol Daisam at the end, right? Because that was our question. Rashi therefore adds, and listen to this, a beautiful thing. Rashi adds, the reason why it's at the end is to teach us something else, to teach us how to spell the name Binyamin. It should be spelled according to the way it was spelled when he was born, according to the way it's written on his birth certificate, so to say. You understand? That when he was born, it was Binyamin with 2 yuds. The reason why Kitol Daisam is at the end of the pasuk is to teach us that the last name written on these stones should be written Kitol Daisam according to the way it was done at birth. So Kitol Daisam is doing 2 things. It's telling us the order, and it's telling us, and it's written at the end to teach us the spelling of the one at the end, Binyamin. And then Rashi at the end of the whole thing gives us the punchline. The punchline of everything he's trying to write and trying to explain. What is that? That there was 25 letters on each. They were completely equal, absolutely equal. There was no one stone more significant than the other. Rashi wants to drive home the point that you may have come with a whole preconceived idea that these two stones were divided based on specialty and significance and greatness. Rashi says, no. At the final analysis, 25 letters, completely equal, one stone and the other. So Rashi's agenda here is to clear up any mistake a person might have of making it unequal, the two stones. Unequal in chashivos and greatness, unequal in order, and unequal in even amount of letters. That's Rashi's agenda. Let's put Rashi aside. We're going to get back to him. Now let's move on to Rambam. The Rambam writes in very clear terms the other way that we thought before, but with a very big twist, a very important twist. Let's actually do this. Look at, you see the way it's written? It's written very strange. Reuven, Levi, Yisachar, Naphtali, Gad, Yosef on one. Shimon, Yehuda, Zvulun, Dan, Asher, Binyamin on the other. What order is that? So the Rambam writes like this. You carve onto the two stones, Shmois HaShvatim, the names of the tribes. Shisha al Even Zu, Veshisha al Even Zu Kitol Daisam. 6 on this one, 6 on this one, Kitol Daisam, according to their births. What's according to their births? We'll find out. The Koisvim Shem Yosef Yehosef, and you add a letter to the name Yosef, the letter Hey, that's the way it's written sometimes. The Nimtzu, and what does that lead us to? Chafei Oisis Be'evenzu, Chafei Oisis Be'evenzu. There's exactly 25 letters in this one, 25 letters in that one, because when you do not write Binyamin with an additional Yud, but you do write Yosef with an additional Hey, then it evens it out to have 25 letters in each. The Kacha Yuksuvim, this is the way they were written. So I'll tell you what the Rambam is doing here. The Rambam says that you read it line by line across. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, Naphtali, Dan. Naphtali and Dan are the opposite. It's a question. The Mefarshim and the Rambam explain that, but let's Gad, Asher, Yosef, and Yamin. So you see, you read them across the shoulders. You know, if you open up a book and the book tells you not to read page by page, but you read from one page all the way to the next, it's very strange. The only thing I could think of as a maybe a similarity to this would be Lahavdil, but it's the 10 names of Haman in the Megillah. When you read it like this, right? You go back and forth, the S, the Ace, Parsham Dasa, the Ace, the Alpha, the Ace, Asmasa, right? That's the way they're written in the Megillah. So Reuven and Shimon are coming after each other, but you read from the right shoulder to the left. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Naphtali, Dan, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin. That's the way the Rambam says to write it. So what is the Rambam doing here? So the Rambam's doing a few things that are changing from Rashi. Number one, the first obvious change is what I just mentioned, that it's read across the shoulder instead of being written one stone at a time. The second thing is, like Rabbi Green said before, he groups together all of Leah's children first, and they're not on one stone. All on Leah's, so it's not really the way we were thinking before, but all of Leah's children first, all of Bilhah's, Zilpah's, and then Rachel's. But it's written that way. So the Rambam takes the idea that we're discussing earlier about the equality of these two stones, and he takes it to a greater extreme. Not only were the two stones completely equal, they were actually one stone. They're one stone divided into two. You see, Rashi says they were two stones that were equal. The Rambam says the truth is they're not even two but equal. They're actually one. They're supposed to be read across because they're one stone that's being placed on two different shoulders. So both Rashi and the Rambam are here for the same objective. What's the objective? Objective is that there should be utter unity here. Total, complete unity between the two stones. Rashi accomplishes it by telling us that there's 25 letters in each, and also by telling us that we throw out any significance of one who's greater than the other. You just go according to the way they were born. The Rambam, on one hand, he does a much greater form of unity because he says read it across because the two are really one. On the other hand, he does something interesting. He says you should, to a degree, calculate chashivus, the significance and greatness of them, by first putting all of Leah's children, then putting Bilhah, Zilpah, and then Rachel's, because all of Leah's children should be grouped together. So let's see where we are in final analysis at this point. We have Rashi telling us unity. We have Rambam telling us even a greater unity. But at the same time, while the Rambam is telling us about a greater unity, that the two stones were one, he also tells us about a disunity by telling us, no, you don't just follow the age, you follow according to the mothers. And you categorize and what would be a better word, you define and put into categories based on the mothers. Each mother gets their category in their group. So in order to understand what's happening here between Rashi and the Rambam, I believe there's no better way of getting to it than opening up the neshama of the halacha, the nefesh of this halacha, and getting to the heart and soul of what's happening here. What is happening here? Rashi, when he speaks about zikaron, right? I told you the last word is that the reason why the Kohen Gadol would have these stones is that it should be lizikaron, as a remembrance. Says Rashi, remembrance for who? Hashem should remember. Hashem should see the names of the Shvatim written, and Hashem will remember their righteousness, the righteousness of the Jewish people and all of the Shvatim, the Jewish people, amongst the Jewish people. Every day in davening, 3 times a day, at the end of Shemona Esrei, we say, Barchenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad. Hashem should bless us. Barchenu Avinu, our Father should bless us. Kulanu Ke'echad. When does Hashem bless us? When we are all as one. When there's achdus, when there's unity amongst the Jewish people, amongst us, then that's really a source of blessing. That draws blessing. What causes Hashem to give us brachas is the more united we are. As a side point, I know some of you may be familiar that the Arizal in his Siddur, the Nusach Ari, so the Arizal Siddur, at the beginning of the davening, he wrote that a person before they start davening should say Hareini Mekabel Alai Mitzvahs Aseh Shel V'Yahavta L'Recha Kamocha. Before you start davening, you accept upon yourself the mitzvah of loving a fellow Jew. And the reason why the Arizal said to do that, he said, because you're going to daven now. You're asking Hashem for brachas, for blessings. There's no greater way of asking Hashem for blessings than to be ba'achdus, to be united with a fellow Jew. That is the source of blessing. That's what brings blessing. That's why we have a minhag also, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, that we give tzedakah before davening. Same idea. So Rashi and the Rambam are saying the same idea. They're both saying that it is the unity of the Jewish people that awakens and brings from above blessings. But they're speaking about 2 different levels of unity. There are 2 different forms of unity amongst the Jewish people. One of them would be called the unity of the avos, of the fathers. The other one would be a unity of the imais, of the mothers. What am I saying? Let's think of it even scientifically and physically, the difference between a father and a mother. The father is the one who brings, provides, produces the essence of the child. It is the mother that develops the child, gives the child its unique form, its limbs, its flesh. Everything comes from the mother. But the core, the essence, comes from the father. When we speak about avos and imais of Klal Yisrael, the same thing is true. All of Klal Yisrael comes from the same avos, right? Avram, Yitzchak, and in this particular case, Yaakov. That is our essence. The imais, the mothers, represents the differences amongst us. The different ways of serving Hashem. You have your way, I have my way, we're not the same. You have your perspective, I have my perspective, we're not the same. Because the imais, it's the mothers that develop each child differently. In the way we serve Hashem, we're all different. So Rashi says, Kitol Daisa means we go according to the father. Yaakov, who was born first to Yaakov, is the one, that's the way we list the order. What Rashi is essentially saying is, you want to accomplish true unity amongst the Jewish people, there's only one way. You throw out the differences. You don't look at any differences amongst us. You don't look at the fact that I serve Hashem differently than you and that your perspective is different than mine and so on and so forth. You look at the fact that we are all one. We all have a neshama, the same essence, the same etzem, and on that level we are all one. On that level we are united. So how could you and I feel as one when we're so different and we think so differently? Because our neshama really is one. That's what Rashi says. And Rashi says 25 letters on each, it's 100% equal, because on the essence of the neshama, from that perspective, we are all equal. Because the Rambam says, the truth is there's even a greater form of achdus, of unity. Right? Because the Rambam's saying a greater form, that the two stones are one. But it's such a great form of unity that we don't have to neglect and throw out the differences amongst us. You have your perspective, I have my perspective. I could value and appreciate your way of serving Hashem. You could value and appreciate my way of serving Hashem. In other words, the achdus, the unity, is not only by throwing out the differences. We don't only follow the Father, the essence, right? The etzem haneshama. We could also have a unity on the level of mothers, where there is a difference between neshamas. When you are different than me, I am different than you. We don't do things the same way, but we could not only appreciate one another, we could value one another, and we could be united by sort of complementing each other. So the Rambam takes the idea of unity even deeper. Not only is this unity a unity that we're all equal, but the Rambam says even when we're not equal, we're equal. In other words, even when we're very different, when you have your path and I have my path, in other words, we're following the mothers here, right? Where you're developed differently than I'm developed. The way I serve Hashem is different than the way you serve Hashem. Nevertheless, the unity of Bnei Yisrael reaches there as well. We don't have to throw out our differences. We could incorporate our differences into this unity. That's what the Rambam is adding. So the Rashi and the Rambam are talking about two different levels of how to accomplish unity amongst the Jewish people, and thereby how to awaken from Hashem brachas, hashpa, and only good things. Luzikarin, that Hashem should only give us brachas and good and blessings and much hashpa. Rashi says it's through neglecting or negating sort of the differences. The Rambam says it's through incorporating the differences and bringing the unity there as well. We're not done. Even though that itself is a neshama of the halacha, there's one more point I want to get to. It's written in Svarim. What's this idea of the number 25? What's 25? 25 letters on one, 25 letters on the other. Why 25? It's written in Svarim that 25 letters are the 25 letters of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu, Shem Echad. You count it, it's 25 letters. And why do you have 25 letters? Because there's a mitzvah to say Shema in the morning and say Shema in the evening, right? You have 2 times Shema, and that's why you have 2 times 25 letters. Other Sfarim say it slightly different. One stone has 25 letters because the 25 letters of the Shema, and the other stone has 25 letters for the 25 letters of Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchus Elolam Vad. Now, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchus Elolam Vad, if you count it, you're going to only end up with 24. But we know the rules with Gematrias that Im HaKoilo, if you include the encompassing number. Now, I didn't make up Chas v'Shalom this calculation. It's coming from Holy Svarim, so that's why I'm quoting it. But what's the difference between those two approaches? Either it's 2 Shemas, or one is Shema, one is Baruch Shem. The difference between Shema and Baruch Shem is explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus as follows. Shema, we cover our eyes. Why do we cover our eyes? Saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. You know why? Because our eyes deceive us. Our eyes fool us to think that it's not Hashem Echad. We see a world, we see a creation, we see things. So what do? We cover our eyes and we say, you know what? I'm canceling out any other perspective, any other thing that might be in my mind. Hashem Echad. That's the truth. Once I open my eyes, I can't relate to that. That's Baruch Shem K'vod Malchus Olam Vad. We open up our eyes, we look at a world, and we say, yes, even in this world, Hashem is still king. Hashem is in control. I might not see it, but I know Hashem is in control. I don't want to get confusing, but it's just called Yechuda Ilah, Yechuda Tata, a higher unity where there's no world, and Yechuda Tata, where there's a unity within this world, and Hashem is still the only one. So the first way of reading it is that the two are Shema of the morning, Shema in the evening. As I said before, Shema is similar to Rashi's approach. You're canceling out any material things that might, or physical things that might get in the way of the unity of Hashem. You're closing your eyes and you're saying, I don't care what I see. There's no seeing, no nothing. Hashem is one. But the other approach is no, Shema Yisrael, that's true. But then you take your hand off your eyes. You open up your eyes and you look around. You say, Baruch Shem K'vod Malchus Olam Vad. I know that in this world, we're very different. That's number one. There's a world that looks like maybe in our mind, sometimes we could be fooled to think that Hashem is not the only one. And we're proclaiming that still Hashem is the only one, which is very much like the Rambam is saying, that even in a world where we are different, in a world where there's something separating you and I, nevertheless, in that reality, we cause the achdus. We bring about the unity of the Jewish people. And that brings about the brachas from above. So what did we learn today? We learned two different shittas, two different opinions on how the 12 names of the Shvatim were carved onto the Avnei Shayam, on the shoulder straps of the Kohen Gadol. And the common denominator between the two shittas are that we're looking for unity, or not only that, we're looking for equality. There should be no differences between them. Rashi's approach to equality is that we go according to who was born first is written first, who was born second is written second. And the two stones have 25 letters in each, they're exactly equal. The Rambam's understanding of equality is, number one, the two stones are actually one. They're not two. They're divided on two stones, but they're really supposed to be read across, so they're really one. And at the same time, there are differences amongst the Shvatim. We're gonna divide them and categorize them and group them according to their mothers. Mothers means there's differences. We're not all one. But in that reality, we bring about a unity where each yid complements each other. In the different styles of serving Hashem, the different approaches of serving Hashem, we all complement one another and we all bring about a unity. And at the end, we connected this to the two understandings of the 25 letters. Is it Shema and Shema, or is it Shema and Baruch Shem? If it's Shema and Shema, we're talking about a reality that's above, we're completely ignoring the differences. If it's the reality of Baruch Shema and Baruch Shem, that's within our material, physical, mundane reality. And in that space, recognizing the unity, recognizing the oneness of Hashem and the oneness of the Jewish people, the unity of the Jewish people. Shukayach, everybody. Thank you very much. And I want to wish everybody a very joyous, happy Purim. It should be a Gesundte Purim, a healthy Purim. We should come together in good health. And the joy of Purim, hopefully, should bring us much joy this year, much happiness this year. We should only celebrate simchas with one another and the ultimate simcha with the coming of Mashiach.
Amen. May I ask a question?
Absolutely, sure.
I was wondering what the basis is for the Rambam to add a hey to Yosef's name in order to get the 25 letters.
So the basis is from Tehillim. In Tehillim, it's written Yosef with a hey. I'm trying to remember, maybe even in the Torah sometimes, but I know in Tehillim a few times it's written with a hey. For example, Noyeh Katzoin Yosef, the pasuk in Tehillim, in Pei Ches, I think it is, in 88, it refers to the Bnei Yisrael as Noyeh Katzoin Yosef, and over there it's written with a hey.
Okay, I just had never heard of Yosef being spelled with a hey, but now I understand it makes sense. I knew the Rambam doesn't pull things out of thin air, so there had to be a source somewhere.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I'll check if there's more places, but that's the one that comes up the top of my mind. I know for a fact that in Tehillim, that's where it's written that way. I don't know if that's the only place. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
No, I'll tell you. There's a lot of background to this. Am I right? Am I speaking to Robin?
Yes.
The background is that the Gemara says that why did Yosef have the merit to have the letter Hey placed into his name in Tehillim is because he did such a Kiddush Hashem by refusing to be intimate with Eshes Potiphar. So therefore Hashem added a letter of his name to Yosef's name.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to get confusing, but this might be helpful if you. That's where the Gemara also says that Yosef was Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, and therefore his name was added a hey. Yehuda, which was Mekadesh Shem Shemayim b'Farhesia, in an open way, right? Because he let Tamar. He acknowledged that Tamar was right and he was wrong. So therefore, the entire name Yehuda has the letters of Hashem's name in it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
oh, where is it? Rabbi?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, in the, after the davening, so on Thursday, we say in Yom Chamishi B'Shabbos, it says over there, I don't know if they're.
That's where it is. Aegis be
It's
Yosef.
Bahosef Samo. That's
Yes.
where it says that.
Yes, you're right. That's right.
But they give a little different commentary there that he was released from prison, and it says he was appointed viceroy of Egypt on Rosh Hashanah, and in honor of that event, Hashem ordained the mitzvah of Shofar Rosh Hashanah. So they're kind of a reminder of Joseph's freedom. So I mean that's the
Okay, but that's true about that whole chapter of Tehillim, but that's not addressing the letter Hey.
right. It's just that let me see where it says. I think
No, you're right.
later
You're right.
on-
That's
Oh, yes. Well, say what you said goes in the next paragraph. The Talmud explains that Joseph sanctified Hashem's name by refusing the temptation of his master's wife. So that was said.
I'm happy you see I didn't make it up.
No, I never thought of it. I know, but I saw that there were two different ways of.
No, that what you're reading is correct. That's on the earlier pasuk in that chapter of Tehillim.
Well, I say it every day, so I am familiar with the word.
Okay, at least every Thursday. We're all going to read it tomorrow. So.
That's right, exactly.
So we definitely have another exciting thing to look forward to tomorrow after Shemona Esrei to read a.
Okay, thank you so much. Such an interesting share.
Very good, very good. Okay, Rabbi. So we can also kind of bring in the theme of Purim, because in Purim we also look for achdus. Where I think Mordechai said, "Lech kenosis kol haYehudim." Let's come together. Let's fast, and let's work on our achdus.
You're right. I now you make me feel bad. I didn't even think of putting that in.
Oh, it's okay.
No, not feel bad. You're right. In fact, all the mitzvahs of Purim are all about achdus. So shalachmanis, matanos of yoinim, everything is about achdus. It's all about achdus. So and you're right. It's for that reason, because the ness of Purim was a result of Lech Kenosis Kol Yehudim.
Right. All right, it's good. Well, you know what? The more you learn, the more connections that you find in everything, and so it makes learning come alive. It's like an adrenaline, right? It gets you right there. Okay, very good. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I enjoy it all the time. It keeps me going.
Thank you for participating, and thank you for sharing.
It keeps me going.
Okay. Me too.
All right. Good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you
good
again.
yontif. A good yontif.
You too.
Okay.
Rabbi Green, I'm still here with you.
Yeah. I just wanted to just clarify one or two quick administrative things with you, okay? Rather than send you an email and stuff like that, okay? To indicate that I spoke to the office already this week, and they should be sending you something. I don't want you to think it's Matanos Levyonim, though. All right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I actually was in the office today. I was in the Torah office today because I was bringing Shalach Manas to be given out for, I think I told you about this, for Jay Goldberg's group.
Yes, for Friday, for the outreach program.
Outreach, exactly. So I provided the Shalach Manas. So I went into the office, introduced myself, and I don't remember her name, but she got up, she said, "Oh, hi, I'm the one who sends you the checks."
Amy, that must have been Amy.
Amy, yeah. So Andrea, I knew from the emails.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The other item, very quickly, is that we'll need to come to because of the timing of Mariv and things like that. We're going to need to come to a sort of at least a temporary stopping point, probably just before Pesach for Wednesday night. So wanted to suggest maybe we'll stop at the last night at the 17th of March. Okay. And then we can talk after Pesach whether there's something else we'll do or whether we'll wait and do something later on.
Great.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. I don't have my calendar on me now. Do you know what date that is? The Hebrew date, the
Sure.
17th.
I have a calendar right here from one of my grandson's day schools.
Okay.
Right. So, okay, that's the 4th of Nisan.
I got 4th of Nisan. Okay, that's good timing. Okay, very good. It gives me also an additional time to prepare for Pesach, for everything I have to get done. Okay, very good.
All right. So we'll sort of bring to a stop this particular shiur, and then after Pesach we can
Absolutely.
talk.
Okay, and thank you very much for this. It's a real pleasure to spend time with everyone and to learn together. And I really very much look forward to the time that we can maybe come together in person.
God willing, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Kol tov.
Take care.
Thank you.